Our next show begins in 5 minutes. This is intermission time, refreshment time. Visit our snack stand for hot dogs and other sandwiches, for ice-cold Coca-Cola, for a variety of ice cream, candy bars, cigarettes. We are here to serve you. You still have 4 minutes before the next show. Why not take a break, have a stretch, and visit our modern refreshment center? You'll find clean, conveniently located restrooms for your comfort. Try to hurry. Next show starts in 3 minutes. But there's still plenty of time to go to the handy snack stand for a sizzling hot dog and a refreshing Coke, or for any of the many tempting items available there. Two minutes until the next show starts. The refreshment center has plenty of freshly popped hot buttered popcorn and lots of other good things waiting for you. Drop over now.
For your convenience, our refreshment center will remain open when the next show begins in just a minute. You'll find a wide selection of tasty snacks and beverages available for your pleasure. Sizzling, steaming, griddle-fresh hot dogs in fluffy buns with your choice of seasoning. A large selection of appetizing sandwiches. Delicious, refreshing, ice-cold Coca-Cola. A kettle full of hot buttered popcorn, light and crisp, golden good to the taste. Fresh frozen ice cream and lots of other tasty items. Also, you'll find we carry your favorite brand of cigarettes. Make yourself at home. Enjoy the service of our refreshment center whenever you come to see us. Now, on with the show.
right, well, hello everybody. Welcome to this month's chat. See, we've already got quite a few people here in the room. So, hi Martin, hi Queen, hi Milton Bradley, great games. Hi Kaiser, Austin Zilla, welcome. Welcome everybody, welcome. For Atomic Age Sci-Fi talk, woo! So last month was specifically Victorian Atomic Age sci-fi. So the Victorian science fiction H.G. Wells, Jules Verne from the 50s and 60s, and this month we're just expanding it out to all Atomic Age sci-fi. So science fiction post World War II, post the atomic bombings, the nuclear age, the atomic age. So we're talking, space, Martian invaders, aliens, God knows what, giant monsters. We can include Godzilla this time. There's no God's a band guys right there, and whatever it is that fits into the atomic age sci-fi sort of jam, Jetsons. I don't know, whatever I feel like talking about here this evening. Adjust my fez there. No set program. Again, for this, no set questions, just shooting the breeze, seeing what comes up, and I think as usual I have super chats and things like that enabled. I think, but they are not required for discussion. Um, let's see. Mill says I used to love drive-ins. Yeah, I came in to life at just the tail end of drive-ins. So when I was a kid, we had a few. I don't remember exactly what movies, but I do remember the experience of going to the drive-in. Those have long since departed now, and we don't have any drive-ins in my neck of the woods anymore. Um, Except, I mean, during COVID, there was kind of like the let's bring back the drive-in kind of thing, so we can all keep, emotionally distant from each other and whatever, um, socially, whatever, awkward. Um, but those have since gone by the wayside as actual movie theaters have opened back up because people don't really want to sit in their cars anymore and watch a movie. However, one of my life goals is to do Route 66 at some point here. And I've already driven parts of it, but I want to do the whole thing. And there are more than a few drive-in theaters along the way. There's one, just outside of uh, Springfield, Carthage, Missouri. There's also the Mission Tiki Drive-In in San Bernardino, or thereabouts, whatever town is in the greater Los Angeles area. Um, so want to check that out as well. As part of the, you're driving Route 66, you got to do the drive-ins, right? That's part of the whole experience of the American car culture thing that you get with Route 66. So we'll see. And at my store, actually, one thing I was hoping to do if my store had been more successful, um, and who knows, maybe it will in the future, is because I have a giant screen at my store where I play the old monster movies. And one thing I'd love to do is actually, if I ever am able to expand into a larger space, is have an entire wall dedicated to like just the screen and dress it up like a drive-in and get like some of those couches that look like the rear ends of like T-Birds of classic cars, and have those parked in front of it. So it's like the whole drive-in kind of jam. And if I could get like a Creature from the Black Lagoon pinball machine to go with that, that would be great. But that is a dream that I had when I was, a year ago and naive and thinking that my store would actually be a success, which is this economy. It is what it is. Kaiser says his Atomic Age was so interesting. Yeah. Like my heart is in Victorian science fiction, and that's actually how I kind of got into the Atomic Age stuff, is through the Victorian stuff, and now yeah, I've expanded my horizons to Atomic Age stuff in general. Um, Douglas, hello. A lot of great science fiction writers came out during the post-war era. Yeah. Martin, by the way, on the Let's Take Dinosaur stream, it wasn't Zimzilla who made that video on Lost World. It was Paper Finds. Okay, cool. Thanks for clarification, Martin. Douglas, is still a thriving drive-in in Northfield, Massachusetts, on the New Hampshire border. It's been there a few times. Very cool. Oh, that's nice to know that they're out there. That they do exist. It's just not in my area. Used to have a show called Route 66. Yes, there was. And one of the episodes, in fact, has Boris Karloff, Peter Lorre, and Lon Chaney Jr. in it. Uh, it's a quote from Shakespeare. It's "and owlet's wing" or something like. It's like the end of that line from Macbeth. Um, that's that episode where basically they're terrorizing a motel of people. It's a fun episode. Martin said, I would like to do a drive-in theater someday. Yeah, that would be oh, there Kaiser is filling in that. Yeah, there was an episode with Chaney Jr., Karloff, and Peter Lorre was in that episode as well. To drive-in theater someday. Yeah, it's well, I mean, now of course, the drive-in theater experience would not be like so much like the yay, I get to sit in my Honda and watch a movie. It would be more like you want the retro cachet of it, right? You want the retro experience. Ideally, you want to see like some vintage drive-in sort of movie, like what ostensibly we're going to be talking about tonight. Um, the full experience, the intermission bumpers and the let's all go to the lobby and all that sort of stuff, right? You want that full experience, the retro drive-in experience. Otherwise, yeah, you're sitting in your uncomfortable car watching a movie. It's like, I can sit in my home where I'm more comfortable. So it is what it is. But yeah, it would be cool if you could find like one of those like really retro vintagey sort of drive-in theaters. Um, that would be a lot of fun. And go to the Saw Cop after or something like that. Lizard's Leg Owlet's Wing. Yeah, that's the one queen. Um, that's the only real episode I've actually sat through and watched all the way through of Route 66, the show. Um, a lot of B science fiction films played in drive-ins. Yeah, that's kind of what they were for, right? Is that whole market of you come and see the double feature of I Was a Teenage Werewolf and The Wasp Woman or whatever, right? Driving your car in there, let all your friends out of the trunk, and all that sort of thing. Um, it was just those movies were not part of you have to come and see this movie. It's the Barbenheimer thing or whatever. No, it's like you're already going to the drive-in with your friends because that's the thing to do in your small town in Missouri or whatever. And so we'll just throw whatever kind of crappy B movie at you that is available, um, which many of them are a lot of fun. That's not me trashing on them. I do enjoy watching a lot of them, um, and they're a lot more fun than a lot of movies nowadays. I will say that much. I don't feel like a Roger Corman movie is um, telling me what a horrible person I am because of my skin color or whatever. So I'll give him that. I'll give him that. That's a nice change of pace from the modern era, uh, and what's going on in movies today. So that was a fun era, indeed it was. Yeah. Yeah, kept the driving in business for years. Yeah, well, they kept him in business too, right? It's a wonderful mutual relationship there. It's one thing that I haven't. I suppose I could do an actual proper like video about it someday, like one of my top 5 atomic age sci-fi movies, which I haven't quite figured out, but I do know some favorite ones, at least, not counting the Victorian ones because we talked about that last month. Otherwise, it's kind of obvious which ones are my favorites. But as far as some of the other ones, um, I think one of the big ones, not exactly earth shattering here, but what I've chosen for the graphic for tonight's program, here's Forbidden Planet. Um, that is definitely one of my favorites. It's such a good movie. Like it's hard to um, most people might think, oh, it's kind of boring, whatever, kind of cheesy, yada yada yada. Nothing really happens in it, whatever. Like it's not a big action movie, um, but it's The Tempest, redone as a science fiction thing. But you think about like its place in history, right? Um, it came out about 10 years before Star Trek, right? And it's like the most obvious um, sort of influence on the original Star Trek. Um, I would love. This is one where I actually like. I wouldn't care for a sequel, whatever. Um, but it would be interesting in some capacity or other to see like other stories set in the same universe as Forbidden Planet, right? So just take the rest of the Shakespeare plays and redo them as stories set in the Forbidden Planet universe, right? It's the other adventures of the sort of human exploratory forces and that sort of thing. Um, would be kind of fun, and it's a beautiful movie. Like the paintings, the set designs, everything else. Like Forbidden Planet's like actually a really stunning movie. Um, I just recently got the Blu-ray of it. In fact, a video is coming up. I didn't set up a previews for it, but a video coming up is going to be just looking at my video collection and what I have. And one of the things I most recently got was the Forbidden Planet Blu-ray, which is definitely worth it. Totally worth it. Um, Also includes the movie Invisible Boy, which has Robbie the Robot in it, and like an episode of the Thin Man TV show with Robbie in it. Like it's got a bunch of Robbie the Robot bonus features on it, stuff like that. So the Forbidden Planet Blu-ray, if you don't have it, like pick it up. It's actually really good. Cory made classics like Day the World Ended and The Wasp Woman. Corman made so many movies, and yeah, a lot of like low key, B to Z movie classics. Really, a lot of which are a lot better than one would expect. I mean, there's all the Poe movies. Everyone knows all the Poe movies, of course, with Vincent Price. But there's Little Shop of Horrors, the original one, and there's another one he did. I keep forgetting the name of it. I think it's Bucket of Blood. Was actually like this really wry comedy. So that one's really good as well. I mean, some of the movies are like bad even when you make an allowance for like, okay, it's just like a B movie drive-in thing. It's like it's still kind of bad. Um, but a lot of his movies are more entertaining than you might get credit for. Yeah, a few big budget science fiction films too, like This Island Earth. Yeah, This Island Earth is a good one. I mean, nowadays it's remembered mostly for two things, right? The Metaluna Mutant, who have gotten right there, and for being made fun of by Mystery Science Theater 3000. That's what most people remember This Island Earth for. But I have said on occasion when I'm feeling spicy that I don't particularly like 2001: A Space Odyssey. I think it is overlong and kind of masturbatory. Um, and it's like, oh, but it's the themes of like the Vertigo of the Infinite. It's like if you want a same theme, but in a movie with characters in it, then watch This Island Earth. It's basically the same thing. It's just in cheesy, um, 1950s sci-fi movie form. Left Forbidden Planet, especially Robbie the Robot, yeah. Watch Forbidden Planet after seeing Leslie Nielsen in Police Squad. Yeah, and no idea such dramatic chops. Yeah, likewise, Douglas. I didn't see Forbidden Planet until after. I knew Leslie Nielsen from comedy movies, so seeing him as a very young man in dramatic roles was very interesting. Kaiser's special effects for Forbidden Planet still hold up. Yeah, yeah. And in fact, the id monster there being animated by Disney animators, providing the animation for that. Robbie's in an episode of Mork and Mindy as well, one of the most gut-wrenching episodes of the series. I have not seen that, but Robbie was in a lot of things. Like he's in at least one episode of Twilight Zone as well. He was in Addams Family as well. He was in an episode of that. So Robbie got around. Robbie was a celebrity in his own right. I love Forbidden Planet because of Anne Francis. She was gorgeous. She is cute as a button in that movie. I will agree. Ashley says, not enough music in the older Little Shop of Horrors. Yes, well, I mean, Howard Ashman Probably wasn't even born yet when the first Little Shop of Horrors came out. So yeah, it's the original Little Shop of Horrors is a good comedy, but it made into a great musical by Howard Ashman. Back when they used to hire beautiful actresses to star in movies. Well, I mean, they still do, but now it comes with asterisks that you're not supposed to think they're beautiful, or else that makes you like a sexist pig, which is like seems a little unfair to me. It's like, why you throw that in front of us and then you tell us we're bad for noticing it. Like, thanks, that's great. Kaiser says I like parts of 2001: A Space Odyssey. I actually did this project once because there was this review that this guy Confused Matthew, who's sort of a pioneer of online movie reviewing in a video format. He did a review of 2001 and why he didn't like it. And so I kind of took up this challenge that was sort of implicit to his review. And I decided to edit 2001 down. And I actually more than halved the length of it. And it still kept its integrity as a movie. Like, you could still totally understand what it was about as much as you can understand what it's about. But it's like, yeah, the whole Dawn of Man segment, which is a half hour long, I got it down to 10 minutes. That's all you need, right? And I did keep Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite. I kept that the same amount of time. That was equal 10 minutes because those two segments are supposed to be the same length of time because it's all symbolism and stuff, right? So I kept those the same length of time, same 10 minutes, but just condensed it because you don't need to watch monkeys monkeying around for half hour, right? You get the point, right? So somebody needed to tell Stanley Kubrick, no, you need to edit this. It would have been a lot better. Robbie the Robot was in 2 episodes of Twilight Zone. Thank you, Queen. Do you dislike most of the 80s remakes? 2 episodes of Lost in Space and Wonder Woman. So, oh, and then I'll just mention Queen's comment here, and then I'll get back to you, Martin. So Queen says the reference 2001 and Barbie. Yeah, I saw that intro part there about the how radical it was when Barbie came onto the scene. I saw that clip. It made me laugh, and that was one of the things. Where it's like, maybe I'll actually see this Barbie movie. And then I watched actual other reviews of the Barbie movie, and I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't need to see the rest of this. So Martin says, do you dislike most of the 80s remakes of 50s sci-fi classics by making it more about body horror like The Fly and The Thing? Yeah. I mean, the 80s remakes are good in their own way if you like that kind of movie, right? So if you like 80s slasher horror movies and stuff like that, then you're going to like The Fly and The Thing and The Blob. A lot of people like to say that the remake of The Blob is better than the original Blob, which to me seems more like a matter of taste. I don't care much for the slasher and the gore and the body horror and that sort of thing. So my preference is for the original films, the vintage films. Um, like, yeah, I mean, that just might be taste, and that's fine. Um, I mean, like I'm thinking of The Fly, for example. I mean, Jeff Goldblum is great, um, but it's a different movie than the original, right? And I like the milieu of atomic age sci-fi. I like the vintage mid-century films and pre-World War II films. Um, so I just like the style more, and I like that The Fly. It's not it's not this gore fest. Like, well, let's see how violently the fly can kill things, right? It's the horror of what this guy's going through, and it doesn't have to rely on the gore, right? Like, it's the character drama of how this scientific experiment gone awry is affecting people, and it doesn't have to recourse to blood and gore and guts and the effects. Um, I mean, if you think about it, it's a little weird that it's just like his head in his hand, like it transplanted with the fly's head in the hand. So Jeff Goldblum sort of mutating as the fly DNA has got into his system and is now working through his system and transforming him into a fly monster. Um, like that's effective. Like don't get me wrong, they're effective movies for what they are. It's just, do you like what they are? And not being a fan of like 80s slasher horror and gore and stuff, I don't. Um, but if somebody else does, that's fine. More power to them. Just not for me. I prefer to stick with the originals. Because it's where they expect Filtration to recognize that movie. The 2001 reference. It's like, oh, wow. Wow, that's such a funny scene. And then, you know, God, sometime down the road, they'll see 2001 and be like, oh, it's that scene from Barbie. They'll probably reference Clockwork Orange in sequel to Barbie. um, I feel like I would have felt like Alex in Clockwork Orange if I had seen that movie. Um, did I see the remake of Day the Earth Stood Still, the one with Keanu Reeves? I did not bother seeing that one. Um, just didn't see the point in seeing it. It's not it's not a movie that I felt it was necessary to have a remake. Like, why? Why would you? You're not going to make it better than the original. Um, I mean, remakes kind of thrive on the idea that, um, oh, we can make this better because we have better effects now, right? We can fully realize the vision they couldn't have done in the 50s because now we have better effects. But better effects doesn't make a better movie. And um, I mean, you have different time periods as well, right? Like, um, Day the Earth Stood Still spoke to the time period the movie came out in. And if you remake it, 50 years later, it's going to have to speak to the times that it's being remade in. And that's going to fundamentally change what the movie's about, right? Um, so it's not as simple as just we have better effects, we can make a better movie. Um, but I mean, other people, I mean, they like the remakes because it speaks to now instead of 50 years ago. Um, I'm not one of those people, but whatever. Um, Personally, I just don't see the point in a lot of remakes because you can't make it better than the original was for a lot of these movies. Um, Disney looking at you, that you can't make the movie better than what it was, even if it's dated in its effects or dated in its writing and its themes and stuff like that. Like Forbidden Planet, right? It's like, oh, it's a girl, wow, neat, right? Today that doesn't play that well. In fact, you would have to have the ship would have to be like perfectly sorted for diversity, right? Um, but you're still not going to make a better version of Forbidden Planet. So why bother? Just let the movie be the movie and make a new one. If make a new movie altogether. Invest your time and energy in making an original movie instead of making an old movie worse. Martin says, I remember Confused Matthew from the early internet days. He was most infamous for disliking popular films, especially his 2 video review of Lion King. Yes, he got famous for disliking famous movies and popular movies like Lion King and 2001. And he actually had an interesting sort of back and forth with this other YouTuber about 2001 until that YouTuber seems like he had passed away in an accident, something like a car accident or something. So Matthew like stopped making response videos because he's like, it's unfair for me to do a video to somebody who's dead and can't reply. So, which it's like, I think if you'd just done it respectfully, it would have been fine. Because I still would be interested in what his responses were to this guy. Um, because that guy's response to Matthew's review is basically 2001 is like super smart movie, and if you don't understand it, that's your problem, not the movie's problem. It's just like, well, no, that is the movie's problem. I don't think anyone really liked it. The Day the Earth Stood Still. Yeah, I don't remember it being the classic. That's for sure. Good remakes include The Thing and Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Yeah, well, I mean, The Thing. at least what you can say for it is that the original film wasn't itself like this big name classic. Like the original thing from Another World was not like Forbidden Planet, right? It was a fairly low key movie from the time period. Um, so you had that. So the source material itself was like meh. And then you have like John Carpenter at the top of his game making The Thing as like this Cold War parable body horror kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, that worked. It's effective, right? That's what I will say for a lot of these movies. Even if I personally don't like them, they are effective at what they do. So if you do like them, then I could see why you would be into it because it's very effective for what it does. It's just what it does is not really my thing. Remake of The Fly as well. Yeah. Was Forbidden Planet inspiration for Star Trek? Um, yes. So Star Trek had a couple inspirations. Um, Horatio Hornblower was one of the inspirations for the original Star Trek. Um, Westerns, TV westerns, and then Forbidden Planet. Right. So Forbidden Planet kind of lends um, an aesthetic to it, like that sort of sci-fi aesthetic of guys in spaceships going to planets where they um, deal with boring problems in a really boring way, right? It's all discussion and negotiation and these sort of things. Like there's no big action set pieces, right? Like the original Star Trek and like the 2009 movie Star Trek are like the opposite of all possible things, right? Um, the movie 2009 Star Trek movie, J.J. Abrams movie, is like the opposite of Star Trek. Um, as a consequence, like the Secret Hideout shows, so like Star Trek Discovery and Strange New Worlds and stuff like that, that's like the opposite of Star Trek. Um, there's just these big dumb action movies um, with lots of just violence and nihilism and stuff like that. The original Star Trek, it takes the form of Forbidden Planet. It has like these episodic adventures, sort of like your TV westerns, right? Like think of um, like each different planet is like a frontier town, right? In the Wild West, right? So you think like that, for example, the episode where they meet the Horta, that rock creature, right? They're going to like this mining planet. Well, you could imagine like you're going to some western mining town, right? There's the arena, the episode with the Gorn, where Kirk fights this Gorn over a territorial dispute, and you could imagine, okay, the Gorn is like a Native American, right? So you could easily transplant Star Trek into like a Western format, and then Horatio Hornblower is that literary character made into movies. I think with like Sean Bean, where he doesn't die for once, um, where it's this British naval captain going around doing good things, doing good deeds, right? And so with military sort of precision and competence and professionalism, and that's Star Trek. Is you combine those elements in that Star Trek, um, which is why I strenuously disagree with the people who think that modern Star Trek is, oh yeah, Strange New Worlds is just right in there. It's in the same proud tradition as the original series. It's like no. Tell me you have not watched the original series. Though telling me you have not watched the original series if you think that modern Star Trek is anything like the original series, where you're watching Kirk, resolve a problem. Some planet is under the oppressive thumb of some robot who is pretending to be a god, and it's like Kirk just basically talks it into like depression and suicide. Um, like that's the original Star Trek. Modern Star Trek would have unlikable people yelling and screaming and stabbing each other in the chest, and that's how they resolve a problem. And do not like. Douglas says, because we can has replaced, well, we have a well-written story for making, well, at all movies, yes, but remakes in particular. Yeah, well, um, there's reasons why they do a lot of remakes. It's trying to find the surefire thing, right? IP is reliable because people know it, so then. But the stupid thing, this is the baffling part to me, is like, you're picking an IP because it has a built-in audience, and you think this is a surefire thing. People like Ghostbusters. So we'll make a Ghostbusters movie. It's a surefire bet, right? But then they put it in the hands of people who don't like Ghostbusters and don't like people who like Ghostbusters. They don't like you for liking Ghostbusters. So they make this movie that is determined to insult the fans of the thing, right, of Ghostbusters or whatever. Um, this Snow White remake, right? Rachel Zegler is going on and on and on about how, like, oh, this is just like the worst movie ever. Like, how could you even like it? It's like, well, I like it fine, thanks. Um, so it's just like, why would you do that? How is your marketing strategy that, oh, that old one that you liked really sucked, and you're kind of like a bad person for liking it? So watch our movie instead, because then you can be a good person, because we fixed that movie and how bad it was, because like it was made 80 years ago, and now we've made it better because it's modern. It's like, well, how about you go suck eggs? Um, so that's, yeah, so I don't understand that modern Hollywood mentality of like, we fixed that old movie and now you have to watch ours. Like, nah. Queen says a crew that followed a chain of command and was part of an organization that explored space sounds a lot like Star Trek. Yep, pretty much. Milton Bradley, I think Roddenberry described Star Trek as Wagon Train to the Stars. Yes, he did. That was when the Wheezy sold it. Kaiser Soze, that's how it sold to the network. Yeah, Space Western. Yeah. Star Trek was produced by Desilu, company owned by Lucille Ball. Yes, it was not for Lucille Ball. We would not have Star Trek. Hard to believe Lucy has something to do with the creation of Star Trek. Yes, Queen. Rachel Zegler is weird. Weird. Super weird. Oh my god, so weird. Martin, I don't understand the hype towards the Soviet director Andrei Tarkovsky. His films all make me want to fall asleep. I've heard the name. I don't remember offhand what movies he has done, so let me just quickly look it up. What films did he do? Stalker, Solaris, Mirror. Okay, yeah, that guy. Yeah, and Soviet filmmaker. Soviet movies are a bit weird. So yes, I can see where you're coming from there. Um, Kaiser so arrogant for someone who's appeared in so many flops. That is the part that boggles my mind. Is now that we're talking about Rachel Zegler, is the lack of humility, right? It's so smug, so arrogant, and it's like, who are you again? How old are you? Like, I have clothes older than you, child. And you think that, like, oh my god, like, that old movie is so, like, weird. And, like, oh, I went on, like, the ride at Disney World, and it's, like, called Snow White Scary Adventures. Like, not something a child would like. It's like, are you kidding me? I would have eaten that up as a child. Like, what's wrong with you, girl? So, yeah, it's just that arrogance, right? And that's something that seems fairly common to um, people with certain worldviews, that it's just this arrogance that everything now is better, everything old is bad. And I'm like so enlightened that I understand the world so much better than like you boomers. And like, how do you not like notice that like the prince was totally a stalker? Like, oh my god. And it's like, are you serious? Like, are you capable of thought? Are you capable of any kind of film analysis? And that's what I'm actually like ashamed at Disney for, is the fact that like so much of this narrative is like this crappy, uninformed, ignorant internet narrative around like how bad the old princess movies are, based on people who clearly never watched them. Like, if you actually do a close viewing of these movies and actually dissect what they say and what they're about, um, they're a lot different than what the internet memes say. But Disney's like basically like accepts, okay, the internet meme, this is what people think, so this is what we have to go with, and now we have to pretend like we're above the movies that we made 80 years ago, instead of defending the movie. Like, just defend the movie. Like, yeah, the original Snow White is great, it's wonderful, and now we want to expand on it with this live action, and unpack and tell more of those stories. We want to tell more of the story of the prince. We want to tell more of the story of the huntsman. We want to tell more of the story of the dwarves, right? So we're going to take 2.5 hours to do it. You know, do that. Like say, oh, this was a wonderful movie. We want to expand on it. Instead, it's like, yeah, the old movie was like so weird, and like we have to fix it. Like it's definitely not a love story. Like oh my god, love is so gross. Like just so it's like good. So I don't want to see it because the original Snow White and Seven Dwarfs is one of the best movies ever made, like hands down. It is one of the greatest movies of all time, and throwing it under the bus does not make me want to see your crappy modern remake of it. That's for sure. She's in both West Side Story and Shazam 2. Yeah, her IMDb is really inspiring. Solaris is a tough watch. Yeah, still interesting film. Good enough for George Clooney to remake. Horror episodes retooled as an episode of Night Stalker. Okay. I'm see the remake of West Side Story. You and nobody else, Martin. Nobody saw West Side Story. Um, love the Night Stalker. West Side Story remake did not top the original. Yeah, I don't even like the original one. Like I'm not a big musical person. That's my wife who's big into musicals. But I like a good one. Um, and I don't know, West Side Story is doesn't do it for me. So it's no Busby Berkeley, that's for sure. Well, I said Howard Ashman, Little Shop of Horrors, is freaking amazing. I'm surprised that hasn't been canceled. Well, it was kind of canceled, right? Because Howard Ashman did Little Mermaid. Um, and then Little Mermaid just got remade because OMG, the original Little Mermaid is like so gross. Like, can you believe that she gave up everything for some guy, even though that's totally not what actually happens in the story, but that's how we choose to interpret it because we haven't actually watched it and we're kind of dumb and ignorant and we don't really understand movies, even though we make them. And so we had to fix this brilliant, tight, compelling Howard Ashman musical and make it better with like our crappy version of the story where the girl boss just girl bosses all over everything. And we're also going to throw in like literally the worst song ever made by people and that it should actually be like banned by the Geneva Convention. Anyways, this is the fun part. Those of you who watch these, come to the live stream because this is where I get saucy. Um, most of the time in the channel, I'm just like, here is this movie that I really like. This is why this movie's so great. Um, this is the live streams is where I get off on rants about friggin' modern Hollywood. Stay on strike, Hollywood. Stay on strike forever. Yeah, how could it be better? The original multi Academy Award winner, yeah. Why would you remake a classic? That is the $1,000,000 question, isn't it, Queen? Well, the idea behind it is a surefire bet, right? Because, everybody loves Wizard of Oz, so just remake Wizard of Oz and everyone will go see the new one. Citizen Kane is one of the best movies of all time, so remake Citizen Kane. It's a surefire bet. Everyone's going to go see it. But just make sure that we advertise our new remake by pointing out how, like, what a piece of shit the original movie was, right? Yeah, it's a classic and everyone loves it. But we want you to love our new movie and see our new movie, so we have to shame you by making you try to gaslight you into thinking that the original was actually kind of a piece of shit. And we've made it so much better now. Don't get it. Don't get it. Yes, the Scuttlebutt song. Yeah, that should be a form of torture. Because it is. It is a form of torture. Have to listen to that movie. Listen to that song. Yeah, they think adding bloat to a great movie makes it original. Yeah, let's make this perfectly good hour and a half long movie into a 3 hour long slog. Because, you want to know the story of the crew of the Venture as they go to capture King Kong, right? It's totally, we want to know all the backstories of all these guys who are going to die horribly in a spider pit. Why wouldn't you want to know all that, right? The motivation of extra number 3 who gets eaten by a spider. New Casablanca, anyone? I am surprised they have not remade that, frankly. Like, is anything off limits? Like, why would they not remake that one and fix it so that actually Sam is the hero now? Rick is just sort of like this total like himbo who can't do anything. It's actually Sam who saves the day, and it's Sam who gets the girl, right? You got to fix that. Especially now that like everybody who doesn't like the same movies I like is a Nazi. Casablanca is totally relevant again, right? No good comedy scenes in Little Mermaid. They took out the scene where the chef chases Sebastian in the kitchen. Yep. They did. Actually, I didn't see The Little Mermaid. To be totally honest, why would I do that to myself? I am aware of the Scuttlebutt song, and I know what happens in it. This is the thing: is like, um, you have to be aware of the modern entertainment climate, right? At least for no other reason than to understand why you're being called names because you didn't see a movie. Um, so I do not regret my decision to not see The Little Mermaid. So I suppose I should, in the interest of honesty and fairness, say I did not see it. I have seen parts. I have seen Scuttlebutt. Wish I did not see Scuttlebutt, but I have seen Scuttlebutt, and that was enough. Um, Not black and white. Enough morality for today's audience. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's harsh because it's like, on the one hand, it's like, oh, everything's all relative. It's all shades of gray and stuff. But on the other hand, if you disagree with me about anything, you're literally a Nazi. Like, okay, sure. Peter Jackson's King Kong was a love story between a woman and a giant silverback. Yeah, it was, which is really creepy. Because I understand being sympathetic to Kong. I do. I'm a big Kong fan, right? I'm veritably obsessed with that movie. But I have never seen it and will never see it as like a love story. It's like, no, she's just been kidnapped by this giant terrifying ape. And he might like her, but she has no reason to be anything other than terrified by this giant ape. So the whole like reciprocal love story thing is like, that's a bit weird. Don't much care for it. And I don't much care for the academia that comes out of it, like, oh, actually, it's about interracial sex and stuff. It's like, that's a bit of a hot take. But I did a whole video about that, right? My old King Kong racist video. Looks like the new Kong, but man, the Dino Stampede and fights in the vines are the biggest "Are you effing kidding me" moment. It's a lot. It's a lot. Peter Jackson likes to add a lot to things. And since he couldn't make it better, he made it longer. And that's a thing. To enjoy the short stories of Ray Bradbury, like A Sound of Thunder, not the terrible film adaptation with bad CGI that was banking off King Kong that was released the same year. Yeah, I mean, Sound of Thunder is a classic, right? Um, and it has defied making movies out of it because it is just a short story. So what are you gonna do, right? Like it's hard to fill that out. It would make a good episode of like Ray Bradbury Presents, um, but as far as like a feature film, like not really. It's such a simple story that I'm not sure how much of a film you can make out of it. But I mean, Ray Bradbury's classic, right? Don't like how the remake turned Carl Denham into a bad guy. Lazy writing. Yeah, that's a case of people listening to the memes rather than watching the movie. Right? Is like, oh, Carl Denham's like such a bad guy because he brought the monkey back. So we have to, when our remake, we have to do a remake that's informed by that mythology that has developed about the movie. That Carl Denham's such a bad guy, um, rather than actually watching the movie itself and um, working with what the original movie actually says. You know, the whole like, oh, I can't believe that like Snow White was like she had to be rescued by some like creepy stalker prince. Weird, weird. Um, no, watch the freaking movie. Watch the freaking movie and try to understand what the movie's about. King Kong. Oh, Carl Denham's such a bad guy. It's like, no, just watch the movie. Watch the original movie. See what the original movie's about. Don't just go with like sort of the popular conception, the popular mythology about it. But I don't know. I went to university at a time when they actually taught you critical thinking and close reading and stuff. So now I feel like I am totally out of pace with the rest of the world because I actually do those things and nobody else does. It was me feeling sorry for myself. So it's just like, to me, it's second nature to watch the movie and do a close analysis of it. That's how you get a good mark on your essay. And today it's like, no, you come out with the most outraged opinion, no matter how uninformed it is. and then you get everybody else outraged, and you get internet points. And I cannot compete with that. 76 remake was more creepier. Did I see Kong Skull Island? I did. Carl Denham didn't want Kong to die. No. Carl Denham was actually the captain. Captain Englehorn pegs him. He says that he's well-meaning, little enthusiastic. He's an old-time Hollywood movie maker guy who's just really enthusiastic. And part of his enthusiasm was like, holy crap, we've captured this ape. Let's put him on display. And he didn't, like, he would come to regret it, of course. In Son of Kong, that's one of the major sort of, the arc for Carl Denham is his regret over what happened. But he wasn't a bad person. In fact, he acts quite heroically in the original film. It's just he made a bad choice by not respecting what Kong was, and he paid for that. Well, until he got rescued by Son of Kong. So, like, yeah, he's not a bad person. He's just was a little excited and made bad choices. 76 remake didn't have dinosaurs, so cheap. Yeah, that is true. That is true. Although we are talking Atomic Age stuff, so I guess we should be talking about King Kong Escapes, right? So the perfect Toho kaiju movie that does not have Godzilla in it is King Kong Escapes. Carl Denham was obviously based on Ernest B. Schoedsack. Actually, my understanding is that Denham was based on Merian Cooper, and it was actually Jack who was based on Ernest Schoedsack. Had more personality traits in common with Schoedsack, whereas Denham had more in common with Cooper. That was my understanding. Although I will also make the claim, as I have in my videos, that in many ways, Kong was also Cooper. that Kong in many ways kind of reflects Cooper as well, as Denham reflecting Cooper. Definitely self-insert by the director, yeah. Well, the movie itself is like, it's these guys going to this far-flung land to film a movie, exactly like Cooper and Schoedsack did, right? When they filmed Four Feathers and Grass and Chang. I like Mecha Kong. Yes, Mechana Kong is great. Mechana Kong steals the show in King Kong Escapes. Like, Kong is Kong, and Kong is great, but Mechana Kong is awesome. Mechana Kong steals the show. He's the best thing to come out of King Kong Escapes. And we never saw him again, right? We saw Gorosaurus again. But the rights issues around King Kong are so such a dog's breakfast that we never saw Mechana Kong again. And I was very lucky that I managed to find the Raven Toys Mechana Kong soft vinyl for like super cheap on Buy, which I've been checking to see if there's new stuff on Buy, new old stuff of Kong on Buy, and there hasn't been, which is actually good for my pocketbook. But so I haven't been spending money on Buy lately. There just hasn't been anything I want to buy on there, but I did manage to get the Raymond Toys Mechana Kong, which I'm very glad for. And every time the Godzilla store does a live stream, last one was like 2 nights ago. The Godzilla store live stream where they unveil new products and things like that at the Godzilla store. I always say we need more Kong. We need more Kong. Give me Mechana Kong. Give me King Kong Escapes. But I know full well that the license around Kong is such a dog's breakfast that they are not going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. So we will probably not even see. We won't see any Mechana Kong stuff. Gorosaurus we can see because they can just say, oh, this is like the Destroy All Monsters version. But the Toho version of Kong and Mechana Kong we're not going to see. At least not until the 33 movie goes public domain in like 4 years. So yeah, 2029 is when the 33 Kong goes public domain. Screenplay is written by Ruth Rose, who's married to Schoedsack. Yeah. Doctor Who, the villain of King Kong Escapes, yeah, he's great. He's awesome. He's a great villain, although his teeth freak me out. But it's that guy is, I don't know what he did to his teeth, but oh my god. But yeah, Doctor Who from King Kong Escapes is definitely one of the best of Toho's villains. Because most Toho villains are just like groups of people, right? It's the Zillions, it's the Killax. You rarely get like one like charismatic mad scientist villain, and Doctor Who gets to be the main one for that, which is hilarious. They try to defend the lack of dinosaurs for saying they wanted to focus on the Beauty and the Beast story, despite that King Kong was an adventure film first and foremost. Yep. Yeah, the thing, focus on the Beauty and the Beast is there's nothing to focus on. It's not really a Beauty and the Beast story. It's because it's not reciprocal. It's a huge, terrifying ape that has kidnapped a woman. Love design of Mechanicong. Mechanicong is awesome. Um, Again, and also the Muppets. The gorilla detector is Mechanicong's head. I have kind of been low key looking for just the gorilla detector. I don't need anything else, but I want just the gorilla detector, like a little toy of it or something like that. Would be fun to find. And I have actually seen online. I've seen photos of people doing custom Mechanicon figures where they basically took like a robot, like some kind of robot thing, and then just like put the gorilla detector toy head on it to make it Mechanicon, and it like works really well. So that's a lot of fun. Um, Kong, don't shake the ship. I eat and sleep on this ship. Yeah. Talking about 76 remake, by the way. Yep, yeah, knew that. Isai Yamamoto, who played Doctor Who, was also the kindly toy maker in Godzilla's Revenge. Yep. He was also, well, he's been a goon in a lot of movies. He was a goon in Dogora as well. Um, the gangster who laughs and he tastes the diamonds. They're actually just like rock candy. Um, he's the one that laughs. He's the same guy. Um, but Doctor Who belonged in a James Bond movie. King Kong Escapes is a James Bond movie. It is very much in that vein. King Kong Escapes is a Sci-Fi movie with giant monsters in it. Like it's, you know, you have the evil villain in his lair and his plan to take over the world. You have the agency of basically secret agents. Um, you could totally replace um, uh, Rex Reason. Which one is it? It's Rhodes Reason or Rex Reason? It's two brothers. They look identical, and it's trying to remember which one's in which movie. But um, Rex or Rhodes Reason, whichever one's in King Kong Escapes. Um, he could be James Bond, right? You could cut Sean Connery into King Kong Escapes, and it would still largely work as a movie. So, he played a villain in What's Up, Tiger Lily? Yeah, I can believe that. Um, that might be actually one of the reasons why I like King Kong Escapes so much. Because King Kong Escapes is my like second favorite Kong movie. And now that I think about it, now that you brought up James Bond, it's got me thinking that one of the reasons I like it might be because it is a spy-fi movie. So spy-fi is a genre from the 60s of sort of, you know, spies, international spies with high-tech gadgets fighting mad scientists and stuff like that. So like Sean Connery, James Bond is the classic example of spy-fi. The original British Avengers is also a really good example of spy-fi, and that's my favorite example of spy-fi as well. Um, Especially the once they sort of work it out, so you have, you know, Mr. Steed in his full bowler hat and everything, and Emma Peel. Um, that's the classic Avengers. It took them about 3 seasons to figure that out. Um, as you get that is like my favorite spy-fi show is the original Avengers, and it's the only cosplay I've ever done, by the way. That my wife and I, back when we were still dating, we went to the local Comic Con um, dressed as the Avengers. So I went the full suit and bowler hat. She had like the cat suit on. It was perfect. It was great. Loved it. Um, so yeah, King Kong Escapes. One of the reasons I'm probably one of the reasons I like it, now that we're talking about it, is not only is it King Kong, and not only is it like one of the best Toho Showa era kaiju movies, but it's a Sci-Fi movie in the form of a Toho kaiju movie starring King Kong. So, yeah, that would explain a lot, actually. So, thank you for pointing out that Doctor Who is a James Bond villain, because now that has actually opened up why I like that movie so much. So, thank you. Um, Several Toho actors. God, Toho actors. It's just have a checklist handy. Like every time you see one, like I recognize that guy. You take a shot, right? Because it's that guy again. It's that guy. In fact, at when I still went to our local anime convention, I the last few years, when we still went, I did a panel on Showa era Toho movies, and I actually had a little section in my lecture about like who's that person, and just pointing who these actors are and who they're playing in each movie, um, because they're studio actors. They keep showing up in every movie, and even the non-Godzilla movies. Like you see them all in the Three Treasures or the Birth of Japan, that movie. Um, like they're all in there too. So sometimes you recognize them in the Kurosawa movies as well, because they cross over into those movies, which are also by Toho. It was Rhodes Reason, and Rex Reason was in This Island Earth, yeah. And I think it's Rex Reason. No, it was Rhodes Reason who was in the Creature Walks Among Us. I think that was Rhodes Reason because he was reunited with Jeff Morrow in Creature Walks Among Us. Derek Flint was amazing. Loved the British Avengers. Our man Flint was terrific. Everyone was copying James Bond in the 60s. Probably not interested, but I don't think the trailer for Monarch Legacy of Monsters doesn't look too bad. I have not seen the trailer for Monarch Legacy of Monsters. I don't know, maybe. I didn't bother watching the Kong cartoon. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll watch it. Depends if I have time. Dean Martin as Matt Helm. I have not seen Dean Martin as Matt Helm, but I probably should because I do enjoy a good Dean Martin movie and a good Dean Martin song as well, which is hilarious listening to Dean Martin because the stuff that he sings about, you could not sing about today. So he is charmingly licentious, um, and which my wife describes as he's silly, and that's fun. So, man, we got off on some kind of tangents here, hey? Talking about Atomic Age Sci-Fi, ostensibly. But we did pull it back around to King Kong Escapes and Spy-Fi and James Bond. So there you go. Repair Camp, there's Raquel Welch and Fathom. I have not seen Fathom. Remember Man from U.N.C.L.E.? That was another one. Yeah, I never really saw the show, but I did like the Guy Ritchie movie, actually. So talking about remakes, that was actually a good remake. That said, I'm not like married to the original show, so I don't know if people who like the original show didn't like the remake or not. But the Guy Ritchie remake with Armie Hammer and why can't I remember his name suddenly? He's a dreamboat Superman, fucking Henry Cavill. There we go. Henry Cavill in it was actually really good. I really enjoyed that movie. And I thought, like, that's actually the one that made me be like, Henry Cavill has to be the next James Bond. Like, that's not optional. Like, they have to get Henry Cavill to play the next James Bond. If they don't, um, then they don't know what they're doing. Yes, Henry Cavill. It's not like he's doing anything because he's not Superman anymore, and he's not the Witcher anymore. So we haven't talked about all the Alien movies, like Earth vs. the Flying Saucers and War of the Worlds. Yeah, we have not yet. Yeah, I mean, come on. Earth versus the Flying Saucers, classic. Actually, what I love about Earth versus the Flying Saucers, this is like a weird low-key thing. One of the things I love most about Earth versus the Flying Saucers is that Paul Frees does the voices in it. So Paul Frees is a classic voice actor from mid-century. He did a lot of voice work for Disney. Like a lot of the episodes of the Disney TV series, he did the voices for that. He's the ghost host in the Haunted Mansion. He does some of the Pirates and Pirates of the Caribbean. And he was Boris Badenov in The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle, which is also a Sci-Fi show. Um, so, so the fact that Paul Frees does so many of the voices and stuff in Earth versus the Flying Saucers kind of just fills me with a little bit of delight because I know who he is. I know that voice. And War of the Worlds is War of the Worlds. I mean, there you go. It's pretty good. I mean, War of the Worlds. It's not as good as the uh, the original radio show or the novel. Like the original H.G. Wells book and the original Orson Welles radio play are both fantastic. The 53 movie, a little less so, but it's still entertaining enough in its own right. UFOs were all over the place back then. Yeah, they were in the skies, they were in the movies, they were crashing in Roswell, all over the place. Best UFO movie, though, of the mid-century, the atomic age, of course, has to be Plan 9 from Outer Space. That is the best one. I will die on that hill. Thank you very much. Plan 9 from Outer Space. The best. Earth vs. Flying Saucer, the original Independence Day. Pretty much, yeah. Independence Day is basically a remake of Earth vs. the Flying Saucers, but with a million times more patriotism. U.S. patriotism in it. Which, as a Canadian, is a bit like, okay, today, July 4th is the independence of the whole world. I'm like, oh, shove it. Like, whatever. Today is the Canada Day of the whole world. Would I've loved to see Ray Harryhausen's War of the Worlds? Yeah, sure. Sure. I think I talked about last time that I talk about how I know I do talk about it in my upcoming video about my video collection. Where it sort of took me a while to kind of forgive Ray Harryhausen for the trash that he talks about Godzilla. Because he just sees Godzilla as like this crappy, knockoff of his Beast from 20,000 Fathoms movie. And it's like, dude, Godzilla is way better than your movie. So it took me a while to sort of forgive Ray Harryhausen for that and appreciate his movies for what they are. But as far as his version of War of the Worlds, sure. I mean, okay, I guess. What I would like to see more than anything else is a version of War of the Worlds that's actually set in the Victorian era and actually looks like half decent. When the Tom Cruise one came out, somebody tried to cash in on that by doing a film of War of the Worlds set in the Victorian era, but it's a friggin' awful movie. It is just terrible. So failed attempt at that. So I'd still like to see War of the Worlds set in the Victorian era. Otherwise, meh. I love Planet 9 from Outer Space. Planet 9 from Outer Space is amazing. I love Planet 9 from Outer Space. As per my video about how I love Planet 9 from Outer Space, because it is almost great. It is almost a brilliant movie that pratfalls hilariously into being being what it is. One of the most amazing failures in all of Hollywood history. Love Plan 9. And actually, that's one that I would be curious to see a remake of, just if they took the exact same script and just did it with better effects. If they turned it into like this big budget, splashy, like J.J. Abrams sort of movie, but kept the exact same script with the exact same dialogue, I would be curious to see if anyone would notice how bad it is. Because we've been so trained to accept terrible movies that I would be curious to see if anyone would notice that Plan 9 is actually bad. And, you just give it like some cool trailer, right? You have the blue laser beam shooting to the sky, get bwop on the trailer, and just call it like Plan 9. You leave the outer space part out. It's Plan 9. Bwop. Used to cosplay as Vampira. Ooh, that'd be cool to see. Did you get like the full waist cincher, like all the way in, or did you just kind of have to go with what you had? I'd be curious to see if you're able to get the full waist cinching that Vampira herself did. Um, I like how Godzilla '98 is more of a remake of East 25 Fathoms than the original Godzilla. Yes, it is. I noticed that right off the bat in the movie theater in 1998. I was like, this is Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. This has nothing to do with Godzilla. I have seen the animation test that Harryhausen did of the Martians. So we'll, I guess it's one of the big what ifs, right? What if Ray Harryhausen had been able to make his version of War of the Worlds? But he didn't. So there you go. There was a syndicated series in the 80s, I think. 30 years later, direct sequel to War of the Worlds. Yes, there was. I watched that show religiously as a kid. I loved the remake of War of the Worlds, or not the sequel TV series. Yeah, but they did a weird thing, right? Because the first season was like straightforward remake set in the modern day, not remake, straightforward sequel set in the modern day. The Martians have come back to life. They just went into stasis because of the virus, but now they came back to life, and now they're covertly trying to rebuild their forces and overthrow humankind. And then in the second season, they threw all that out, and they made a new version of the aliens, um, and uh, and set it in like the near future, in like this dystopian future that basically is what we're living in now. and Yeah, because it's never really a good sign when a series like completely revamps its entire format over like in the second season or third season or whatever. Um, and when they get to like a seventh season and they completely revamp it, it's like, oh, this show's not gonna last much longer, is it? You definitely need a corset for Vampira. Yeah. Who came first, Vampira or Morticia Addams? Oh, actually, complicated question. So Morticia Addams, the character, came first. So the cartoon character drawn by Charles Addams, that came first. And then Mila Nurmi, who was Vampira's real name, she went to a Hollywood party, costume party, dressed as Morticia from the comic. And that got her noticed, and she turned that Morticia into Vampira and became the first horror hostess. And then, like a decade later, practically, just short of, the Addams Family TV series is made. And so Morticia gets translated into film with Carolyn Jones playing Morticia. So Morticia, the cartoon character, inspired Vampira, the hostess, and then also later on was adapted to become um, uh, the TV character. And then you throw Elvira into the mix. So that was a case where they were actually looking for a new Vampira, and Milo Nurmi was involved in that originally to find a successor to the mantle of Vampira. And then they had a falling out with this. And so the studio that was working on this project with the original Vampira, they decided just to go ahead with it anyways. And they selected Cassandra Peterson and just like adapted her character so she wasn't like Vampira, and they made her into Elvira. And then Vampira saw through that and sued, but lost the case there. So there you go. Yeah, two seasons of War of the Worlds completely different. Didn't even like the Tom Cruise version of War of the Worlds. I didn't even see it. What are your thoughts on 90s, 2000s modern day alien films, such as Fire in the Sky, Signs, and Nope? Nope, I have not seen them. Not see, I'm not like into movies about extraterrestrials, like to speak of. Like I don't go like, ooh, it's a movie with aliens. I better go see it. I like the 50s movies, and it's not even like 50s movies involving aliens that I'm particularly in love with either. Like my favorite movies is Plan 9. That's its own unique thing. Um, but it's all like kaiju movies or like these really weird oddball sci-fi movies or Victorian sci-fi movies. I think like The Blob is one of my favorite atomic age movies. Forbidden Planet, which doesn't even have aliens in it; it's all humans in it, right? And the Fiend Without a Face, which is nuts. It's like if David Lynch made a 1950 sci-fi movie, it would be Fiend Without a Face. That one is crazy, and I love that one. Um, so as far as like modern alien movies, extraterrestrial movies, I don't have any particular like, ooh, I must rush out and see it. So I have not seen any of those movies you have mentioned. Um, and then I also have like, I don't know, the guy that made Nope. That's a case where it's like he said some fairly stupid things in the media about like, um, we say I don't need to see a movie with a white hero because I've seen that story. It's like, okay, well I've seen a movie with a black person in it, so I guess I don't need to see any other ones, right? Um, which I actually have like a collection of early black cinema, like movies from the 30s and 40s made by black people with starring black people. So it's not an antagonism towards black people; it's just an antagonism towards stupid racist people. I don't tolerate it in any respect, whether you're racist to black people, racist to white people, racist to Asian people. I don't care. Don't be racist. It's not that hard. Um, Favorite version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers? The original, of course. Monsters in Fiend Without a Face were nightmare fuel. Yes, they were. Like, and it's so crazy because like you're watching this movie and it's like, okay, there's something mysterious going on. There's like some invisible killer that's killing people in this little rural Manitoba community. And the rural Manitoba community is blaming the US Air Force for it and their experiments. There's like this girl with the roundest nose I've ever seen. Um, in there, and there's like a love triangle thing going on, whatever. And then you look away, and for like 5 minutes, you look back, and suddenly there's disembodied brains jumping at this house and surrounding it, and you're like, "What just happened here? What is going on? why why are there suddenly all of these brains attacking a house? What on earth is this?" I don't mind Black Hero. Blade's one of my favorite. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. Like I, I'm not. I don't have it down here, but I actually have like a whole like shelf of like black literature and stuff upstairs. Um, that's not the issue that I have. The issue is when people are stupid and racist and they think that they have to sell their movie by insulting other people and other races even. And it's just like, no, okay, I don't feel I need to support that then. Nope might be a perfectly fantastic movie, but it's just like I don't feel like rewarding somebody who thinks that they need to sell their movies by making out that like white people are just some hive mind or something. It's like that's not an approach I'm gonna. It's not an approach I'm gonna support. So, and Blade was great. Blade was awesome. Blade is the best '90s club night turned into a movie I've ever seen. It's like Night of the Goth Club turned into a movie. Those brains are one of the most original and effective alien designs of all time, if you can call them aliens, right? Because aren't they just like um, they're like manifestations of this guy's like subconscious or something like that? It's yeah, and I have not quite fully figured out what is going on in that movie yet. So I've watched it like a dozen times now. Um, but yeah, those aliens again. It's like a David Lynch movie. It's like if Eraserhead were a 1950s sci-fi movie, it would be Fiend Without a Face. I like The Last Dragon, Leroy, Who's the Master, 70s Invasion by Snatchers. It was a downer ending. Yeah. 70s. Everything in the 70s was a downer. 70s were a downer time. Scared the living carp out of me. Yeah. Do you see the trailer for Blue Beetle where George Lopez calls Batman a fascist? I have seen that trailer. And you know what? I'm willing to accept that that was the character, right? Like it's just this line by this character, but then that's the line they chose for the movie, right? To represent, like, everyone knows Batman's a fascist because he's a rich white guy. Am I right? And it's like, no, no, that's all right. And like everybody else, I did not see Blue Beetle either. Not because I don't want to see a Latino-led movie. It's just I don't want to see that Latino-led movie. 1956 Invasion wasn't Sunshine and Roses either, but haha, yeah, Sutherland's reveal was jaw-dropping, yeah. Curious as to why the movie flopped, Queen. Why it flopped? Because it looked terrible, and superhero exhaustion is a real thing. People are getting tired of the genre. Um, too much bad stuff has come out in too rapid succession. Right. So, and I'm not even seeing this as somebody who wasn't even an MCU fan. Like, watching Infinity War is 3 hours of my life I'm not getting back. But you end the Infinity War storyline and the Infinity Saga or whatever they call it, and then you follow it up with a bunch of movies that are just awful, or like nobody likes them. And the DC movies were all stillborn anyways. And I mean, I liked Man of Steel. I liked Batman v Superman for what it was. But a lot of those movies were not very good. Or even if they were okay, they were just okay. So you have this string of bad Marvel movies. You have this string of bad DC movies. And you have the major storyline of the MCU is done. They've killed off like everybody, right? Like Hulk is Hulk just disappeared and then he got emasculated, so whatever. Um Thor is being a frat boy. His whole storyline, they finished his storyline and then they kept him going. Um and Captain America turned into an old man and Iron Man is dead. So like all the characters everybody's loved are done. Their stories are done now. And yeah, like nobody cares. So it's like the there's nothing there for people to get invested in, and nobody cares, and so it's just like Blue Beetle. Who cares, right? Don't even know what a Blue Beetle is, right? It's not like he's a major superhero um, that everybody loves Blue Beetle. It's like no, so um, and plus, I mean, there's movies in general, right? Like movies just in general are doing badly. The whole Barbenheimer thing was just a fluke, which is mostly due to a meme, right? So movies in general aren't doing very well. If I was in charge of the MCU, I would have done it a lot differently than what they did after Endgame. I would have finished off Endgame with an after credit scene and introduced mutants because, Disney bought back X-Men and Fantastic Four, so do something with them, right? But instead, we get Shang-Chi and the Marvels and whatever. It's like nobody cares about these. Ain't nobody caring about these movies. So, whatever. That's modern stuff. Who cares? Atomic Age. Yay. Nobody wants to see Expendables 4. Yep. So I don't watch modern Hollywood because why do I want to do that to myself? Why do I want to waste time watching modern movies? Although I will say I did finally see the Super Mario Brothers movie, and it was actually fun. It was like watching a movie from like 20 years ago where it was just a good, fun, solid, entertaining movie. Um, so I actually liked Super Mario Brothers movie. So there has been one movie in the last 10 years that I've actually genuinely enjoyed. So we'll see. But then, I mean, that one, right? You have Nintendo having very strong control over it. They're not going to let there be a movie where Mario looks like a sack of crap. Because we have to deconstruct all of the old heroes because the past is so problematic and weird. Weird. Oh my god, so weird. Yeah. The Amazing Colossal Man, The Incredible Shrinking Man is Atomic Age. Yes, they are Atomic Age movies. The Incredible Shrinking Man is one of the best Atomic Age movies because you get that sense of sort of the vertigo of the infinite and the dread of this guy shrinking and what's going to happen to him until he finally emerges into this entirely new realm beyond human imagining in this subatomic level and the quantum realm, although they didn't call it that back then. Yeah, it's a great like existential movie. The Incredible Shrinking Man is definitely one of the best atomic age movies. Um, and it's a universal movie as well. Like it's a universal, you can put it broadly as universal monsters, right? It's a universal sci-fi movie from the atomic age. Um, and it's great. It's a great movie. Amazing Colossal Man, eh. Maybe less so, that one. But I definitely like The Incredible Shrinking Man. Did I see the original Super Mario Bros. Movie? Yeah, of course I saw the original Super Mario Brothers movie. That hit when I was a teenager, um, in the 90s, when Nintendo was still a lifestyle choice, and I was very much invested in it. I was like the only kid in my elementary school who had a subscription to Nintendo Power Magazine. I was an early adopter for Nintendo. I had the full Nintendo with the robot and everything. Um, so, yes, I won't say the original Super Mario Brothers was a great movie, but it was a very okay introduction to cyberpunk. Because if you think of the original Super Mario Brothers as less of a Super Mario Brothers movie and more of like this weird children's cyberpunk movie, then it makes a lot more sense. um, yeah, the original Super Mario Brothers and Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future were my introduction to cyberpunk. The effects hold up pretty well too. The slow burn as the guy starts to shrink. Yeah, how they did the shrinking is amazing. Like you have to realize, like they built all of these sets and made all this clothes for him and stuff that he could walk around in that made him look smaller than life size. Um, Brilliant work, brilliant work. And then, I mean, some of the effects, it's like some of the optical effects and stuff like that don't work as well. I mean, they work as well as any other movie from the time period, but how some of the practical stuff that they did to make him look like he's shrinking by building larger furniture and just using perspective and stuff like that was really good, really well done in Incredible Shrinking Man. Which is the better movie, Beast from 20,000 Leagues, Theming Fathoms, or Godzilla? Godzilla, by far. Godzilla is the better movie than Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Um, the problem with Beast from 20,000 Fathoms is the problem with every American atomic age movie, which is that the Americans did not get nuclear bombs dropped on them. So they don't know what it's like. So all of their atomic movies are just kind of like these very shallowly preachy movies, right? Like it's just, oh, look at these giant ants. Isn't that awful? Here's this nuclear isotope bullet thing. Let's shoot it and the problem will be solved. It's very superficial because the Americans never had that experience. Whereas Gojira is a movie about the atomic bombing. So it's about the experience of having that weapon dropped on you. And it's so much more potent, so much more profound, so much more meaningful. Way better movie. Sorry, Ray. It took the structure of your movie and made a much better movie with it. Much more powerful movie in Gojira, certainly. Um, yeah, Martin. Yeah, well, I mean, Peach was fine. She, they played it up as like they didn't play it up as Mario's an idiot and needs the princess to save him. They played it up as like Mario is new to this world and doesn't know what he's doing. But then later on, it pays off and he does the heroic thing, which is the proper structure for a movie. So he didn't. I didn't get the sense that he was being like deliberately humiliated by the princess because it's the modern day and male characters need to be humiliated by female ones. Um, which to me, frankly, looks kind of low self esteem. If you need to humiliate the males so the females feel empowered, that is a social commentary that you might want to examine because that's not a good look. But they didn't do that in Mario Brothers. Mario wasn't competent because he was new at all of this, and then he trained and he got good at it. He went through his character arc where he became a competent hero and he saved the day at the end. So good for him. And like, and it was a team effort too. Like Luigi did his part, and Peach did her part, and Toad did his part, and Kong did his part, and it all worked together to stop Bowser, and that's great. That is perfect. That's why I say, like, this movie, the Mario Brothers movie, felt like a movie from 20 years ago, where it was just a good, competent, well done movie. Weird nobody believes in the Beast in that movie. Yeah. Everyone that sees it gets laughed at. Well, I mean, it's kind of like, well, it was a giant dinosaur thing. Like, yeah, okay, sure, buddy. Seeing the crest of my heart in Godzilla was the mother hugging her children during Godzilla's second rampage. Will be with your papa soon. Yep. Yeah, that was a brutal one, Douglas. Um, that's like, yeah, the single most direct reference to the war and what's going on in Godzilla. And yeah, that is brutal. That is brutal. Um, in some ways, more profound even than like when you see this. Okay, this is with Gojira, right? Like, you know, there's all this property destruction going on, but it's, you see the human scale of it, right? You see the mother clutching her children saying, we're going to be with Papa soon. You see the victims of the attack, right? You see all the people in the hospital ward and everything. You see the child crying as their parent dies and their body is taken away. That's one of the things that makes it better than Beast in 20,000 Fathoms, is you see the human toll of this. And you don't see that in a lot of these movies, right? Like the MonsterVerse ones, it's just property damage. The superhero movies, you know, when they destroy these cities, all you see is property damage. That's actually one of the things I liked about Batman v Superman, is that the movie begins at street level in Metropolis, and you see from Bruce Wayne's perspective this chaos that's going, and he's running into the cloud of debris. Like, that's a really powerful scene, because you see the cost of this, the human scale of it. The last trailer for Godzilla Minus One, you know, you see Godzilla stomping on people. There's a whole crowd of people running away, and Godzilla stomps on them, which is brutal, but also a bit like, because, you know, if you don't normally see Godzilla stomping on people, you see him stomping on things. You don't usually see him stomping on people, but it's still like CGI cannon fodder, right? So, um, it's when you encounter the victims as people, that's where it makes it powerful. So in Gojira, that's the mother clutching her children. That's the child crying as their dead parent is being taken away. Those are those powerful and gut wrenching moments. Um, the When they're singing that hymn to the dead in Gojira, right? That's a powerful moment. Um, Especially when it's, you know, Serizawa. That's what prompts him to make his choice to use the oxygen destroyer. Um, you don't get that in a lot of monster movies. You don't even get that in a lot of Godzilla movies, right? Like after Gojira, you don't really get that kind of scene a whole lot. It becomes like fun, yay, Godzilla's destroying stuff, cool property damage. Um, so it's so much more powerful, and that's why um, the original Gojira is still my favorite Godzilla movie. Um, Shin Gojira is pretty close. Shin Gojira is like right up there, like right on its heels. But the original Gojira, because it's just so powerful as an allegory for the atomic bomb, because it was by the people who experienced it. So yeah, definitely bloody hell, Douglas. Um, they had to wait till he destroyed New York to do something about him, Kaiser. Yeah, that. Well, I mean, that sounds normal, doesn't it? It's not a problem until it hits New York, right? Japanese version of Godzilla has several scenes that weren't in the American cut. Um, yeah, when I saw that in the uncut Japanese version, I nearly shut the movie off. Yeah, the the Americanized version of Godzilla with the Raymond Burr scenes added in it's still a good movie. Like people trash on it, but it's still a good movie, and you can see the echoes in it of the movie that's underneath, right? So even when I had only seen that Americanized version, I could tell like this is a good movie, and I want to see the Japanese one because there's a better movie in there too. It's a good movie made out of a better movie. Um, and then when I finally got whoever released the classic media when they put out the DVD of the Japanese version, yeah, it was just like holy crap! I had no idea it was this good. Even like it was amazing, and powerful and heartbreaking, and yeah. Did I like Godzilla versus Kong? No. I mean, okay, it had well choreographed fight scenes, and if all you want out of your Godzilla movies is big monsters fighting and doing cool monster fights, then it's fine. It is a fine movie. It does have some very compelling and well choreographed fight scenes. I think it could have been a lot better. I think if they had taken out Millie Bobby Brown and her team of characters, take them out, and you make the Apex characters, like the dude who runs Apex and his daughter stuff, and you make them characters, and you give them motivation, like that's Dr. Serizawa's son. Would have been cool to, explore that at all. If they had done that, it would have been a better movie. The Hollow Earth stuff was laughable. I think they should not have had it in the movie in that way. Um, because there's just stuff like, oh, look, Godzilla and Kong are roaring at each other through a tunnel through the Earth. The Earth is 4,000 kilometers thick. Like, that is somebody from New York yelling at somebody in Europe. And it's just like, there's certain things my suspension of disbelief can deal with, like giant monsters. But it's like known things, like how big the Earth is. I can't I cannot suspend disbelief for that. So that was ridiculous, and I hated that stuff. And the fact they didn't explain any of it, like it's just there. It's like okay, cool. I guess they're going to explain it in the next movie. Um, so I thought that stuff was weak. I thought there should have been another Kong movie in there before they did Godzilla versus Kong, to establish, sort of where Kong is at now, kind of thing, and maybe build up some of that Hollow Earth stuff a bit more. Maybe in that, that Kong movie that they didn't make in the middle there. But yeah, it wasn't very good. It was the other extreme. If the 2014 Godzilla is the one extreme where they focus so much on the people that you don't even see Godzilla, um, Godzilla versus Kong is the other extreme where there's so much on focus on the monsters that there's no plot to actually carry it along, and the characters they do put in there are more annoying than anything else. My favorite of the MonsterVerse films is uh, Godzilla King of the Monsters. I think that is the perfect balance of monster fights and human drama, where the human drama actually provides the motivation to the monster fights. I think that actually is the best balance. So I think that's my favorite of the MonsterVerse films is Godzilla King of the Monsters. Godzilla turned into a superhero in later films. Yes, he did. Uh, Godzilla was licensed to the U.S. They kept most of the Japanese dialogue. Attenborough to explain everything. Yeah, Toei made a lot of money merchandising Godzilla to kids. They sure did. Love the American cut of Godzilla. Me too. It's still a good movie. Mechagodzilla looks like a transformer. Sure. So Kong was descendant from a race of subterranean apes. Oh, who knows? I don't know what the story is there. But there's this whole temple in there with a Kong-sized throne and a bunch of weapons made from Godzilla back plates and no explanation for any of it. And it's like, what the crap? And I get like we want to leave something for the next movie, but I also get like maybe explain anything of what's going on would be nice. Another reason Ray Harryhausen for disliking Godzilla is because he held still held on some prejudiced views towards Japanese because of the recent war. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I don't want to ascribe that to him. Might be true, but it's not. Wouldn't be my go-to. I'm gonna take him at his word. That all he saw in Godzilla was just a knockoff of his movie, without thinking about like, how as a drama, Godzilla is a better movie. Were they going for some world building? So confusing. Yeah, I guess they were world building, but their world building was stupid anyways. Because like in King of the Monsters, they kind of present like the Hollow Earth is like these chambers under the earth, under the surface, right? And I can deal with that. That part's fine. But then Godzilla versus Kong, they changed that, so it's literally the center of the planet. 4,600 kilometers down, and you have to get there by like these warp gates, and it's just like, this is so dumb. And I could even tolerate some of that. Like I could even tolerate that stuff until Godzilla like shoots a laser to the center of the earth and they roar at each other, and then Kong like climbs out in a matter of minutes. Like, just come on. We know how big the earth is. Like, are you shitting me right now? Why didn't they introduce the Seatopians into the Monsterverse? They didn't have the license to do it. I mean, anything from the Toho movie that does not appear in the Monsterverse is because they didn't get the license for it, right? And there's lots they could have used if they were doing a straight remake. So, like, all of their monsters that they make are pretty dumb. Like, I don't. Some of the designs are okay, for the non-Toho MonsterVerse monsters, but most of them are terrible. Like, just license the Toho monsters, right? Um, the the underground civilization could have been the Seatopians, could have been Mu from Atragon, but it wasn't because they didn't license it. So whatever, right? Um, yeah. So what ends up happening then is that you get this sort of like it's like this American Hollywood mythology story thing of the MonsterVerse that just happens to have these sort of licensed knockoff characters in it. So there's this licensed knockoff of Godzilla. There's this licensed knockoff of Ghidorah. This licensed knockoff of Mothra. In a movie that has otherwise nothing to do with Godzilla and Mothra and Ghidorah. That's kind of how I see that aspect of it, because they didn't get the license for the other Toho monsters, so it's like whatevs. Meanwhile, Singular Point has new monsters in it, but they're also like these Easter egg tributes to the old monsters, right? They're all kind of like these combos of the old monsters, but they make these original monsters out of them, and it works. It actually is kind of fun. So, maybe Kong is descended from the simian aliens from the previous Godzilla films. Are you thinking the ones that made the Bilisoludins or whatever they're called? The ones that made Mechagodzilla? Maybe. Who knows? Aliens from the planet near the black hole. Yeah. Can you imagine if they had teased Megalon? That would have made dozens of people squee in their pants if they had teased Megalon. Giant spider in the Monsterverse. Yeah, that's Cilia. This sort of spider ammonite thing. Which is one of the okayer designs, but it's like, if you're gonna have Cilia, you might as well just have Kumanga. Like, why do you need to? Other than you'd have to license Kumanga, and you could just make up this other spider monster. It's meh, whatever. Not a fan of Giant Mammoth Man. Trying to know if that's sarcasm or if there's actually something called Giant Mammoth Man. Oh, Giant, right? Yeah, the guy that like the one that looks like a gorilla with mammoth tusks. Ugh, it's terrible. I especially dislike that one. Because to me it looks wrong, because I've literally written a book about the Ice Age in Western Canada. Here's my book about the Ice Age in Western Canada that I wrote. Where's my name? There was my name, right under there. There's my name. I wrote this book, Ice Age in Western Canada. So I know about woolly mammoths, and I know what they're supposed to look like. So a gorilla that has mammoth tusks, I do not like. Do not like. Non-pair me. I especially dislike that one. The ones who made Mechagodzilla. Yeah, yeah. Who doesn't like giant spiders? My wife. What are your thoughts on the Blade Runner films? And the book is okay. I mean, I didn't see the sequel. Um, I have seen the original Blade Runner, whichever version of it was that I saw, the director's cut version or whatever. I mean, it's all right. It's a long, slow, boring Ridley Scott movie. Visually stunning, really pretentious. Um, it's fine, I guess. It's not what I'm like madly in love with. Obviously, it's like, yeah, I've seen it. It was okay. It was cool, I guess. Don't have any particular feelings about it beyond that. So, eh. That's 80s. That's 80s stuff. And Ridley Scott is one of those like depressing directors that came in the wake of 2001, right? His nihilistic, depressing, um, really ponderous sci-fi movies of the 70s. That's still very much Ridley Scott. So even when he tries to make like a modern movie like Prometheus, it's still ponderous and whatever. It's just they keep getting worse and worse and worse. Blade Runner 2049. Yeah, I didn't see that one. Because why? Why bother? Which is a lot of my attitude towards modern Hollywood. Why bother? Rucker Hauer's Roy Batty stole the film? Yeah, that he did. Definitely. Oh my gosh, yawning. What time is it? 8:59. On the verge of 9 here. My time. So we might start drawing this to a close here. How long have we been going for? We've been going for an hour and 47 minutes. Sort of a sympathetic villain. Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing, right? Is like the I forget if they're called androids or synths or whatever, but the androids, they're supposed to be sympathetic characters, right? They're for all intents and purposes, they're human, but they're not treated as human because they're technically machines. So it's like, how do you react to that, right? They're supposed to be sympathetic. Harrison Ford is actually kind of the villain in it because he's hunting down these beings who have sentience and emotion and sapience and stuff. And is he or is he not one himself? You do know Legendary have to pay extra to Toho for getting their other kaiju licenses. Yes, I do know. Replicants, thank you, Kaiser. Yeah, I know. I know they had to pay extra. I know they didn't want to, and that's why they made up other monsters. And get a bunch of, make up their own monsters so that if they want to continue the Monsterverse but don't want to pay Toho, well, they can kill Godzilla, and that's that, and they can just use their own monsters and Kong. I understand that. I get the reasons why. It's just, yeah, it just ends up feeling like they're making their own world that they just licensed Godzilla into, rather than creating a Godzilla movie, you know? But, whatever. I'm not in charge of this stuff, so nobody's asking my opinion on it, except you guys. So, whatevs. We'll see if Universal has a legendary Monsterverse land or something like that. Build that in their theme parks. Have a new version of the Kong ride, where it's Skull Island Kong. Actually, I would like that more than the one they have, the 2005 Kong. I would rather, on the scale of things, I would enjoy a Monsterverse Kong ride more than I would enjoy a 2005 Kong ride. So, make it so, Universal. Not that I trust Universal to actually do anything right, but that's a whole other thing. Someday we'll do a live stream on theme parks and get me going on Universal and what I don't like about Universal. Not for not wanting to. I mean, Universal's like home of the monsters, right? So I want to like them, but they make it difficult. I've ever seen Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. No, I did not see Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. That is a George Pal movie, I think. I have not seen Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. I suppose I should. I'm still, despite, doing a Let's Talk live stream about Atomic Age Sci-Fi, I'm still learning about Atomic Age Sci-Fi because, um, I've spent so much of my life up to this point actually focusing more on like the Victorian sci-fi stuff. Irwin Allen, there we go. Thank you. Um, that the Atomic Age stuff is one that I'm still learning about and still watching. It's relatively recent. Um, so I'm still seeing new ones I have not seen before, with some regularity as I go searching across YouTube and go reading my old movie guide books and things like that. Um, so I would not consider myself an expert in the genre. Probably no more than the average bear about it at this point. But I haven't not seen every movie, and there's some um, zones like Irwin Allen, who I'm not very familiar with. I mean, I've seen some of the movies, like his version of The Lost World, which is terrible. Um, but I'm not like super versed in Irwin Allen movies. So as an example. Irwin Allen, Zestafera, Land of the Giants, Voyage, Time Tunnel. I have seen the Time Tunnel TV show, which was alright. Lost in Space, copies of Family Robinson, yeah. Space Family Robinson, right? Starring Zorro, which is so weird to see him as an older, slightly more portly middle-aged man without a Spanish accent. So, um, they used the name Robinson, yep. And they did, just to make sure you got it. I mean, it's not exactly Swiss Family Robinson. It's not like they're living on this other planet or whatever, but yeah, there's another remake that fell flat both times. The film remake and the Netflix TV show remake. Guy Williams, yeah. Zorro. Don Diego de la Vega. Who is one of my favorite superheroes as well. Zorro's awesome. That was the Disney discussion, right? Zorro. The original Zorro TV series is awesome, especially the first 13 episodes. It's too bad they really felt so compelled that we have to have 13 episode arcs. We can't go beyond that because they really should have kept Comandante Monasterio around for the full season. But whatever. That was before I was born, so nobody asked me. Alright, well, we're getting close now. The robot was the most famous character on the show. Yes, danger, Will Robinson, danger. I actually sell a toy of that robot at my store. I got 2 of them. I sold one about 3 months ago, and the other one is still there. They've been there since the store opened last April. Like April last year. So, Lost in Space, despite the Netflix show, not the most well-known property. Most people just think he's random robot guy. But it's like the Commodore 64 game, the movie monster game, where they got the rights to include Godzilla, while the other monsters, they were totally original. Yeah. All right, well, we're verging on 2 hours here, and I'm clearly starting to drop off. So, I actually had a tour I was doing, a private tour I was doing for a couple from the United States today. That we went to Drumheller, the dinosaur capital of Canada, and did a geology tour of that. So I'm a little bit tired, a little bit wasted. I still have to get up early tomorrow to do another tour. So I think we're gonna draw tonight's discussion of mostly atomic age sci-fi, with some little going off in other directions, as we are wont to do. We'll draw this to a close, which means it is time for... previews of coming attractions, so, which I don't have a whole lot because I've been so busy that I haven't actually had a chance to work on more new videos, really. The Creation of Black Lagoon video is still coming out. The video I've mentioned of a tour of my video collection, that's going to be coming out. Writing some more stuff. I have to get around to actually making the video. However, I should announce the next live stream, which will be towards the end of October, which means, yay, Halloween! So we're going to be talking Halloween stuff. No particular thing, just spooky stuff in general, whatever. Maybe I'll actually think of some topics, some games, or whatever, as a fun little Halloween get together in probably the weekend preceding Halloween. Will be that, most likely. But there we go. Next stream will be Halloween Haunt. And thank you very much for coming by here tonight. And excuse me, geez. And we'll see you next month. Thank you once again, everybody who came, and for those of you who are, if you are watching this after the fact, and watch the whole thing, thank you. Next time, see if you can join us. See if you can actually join us here on the live stream, here and in person next time. But we'll chat Universal Monsters, we'll chat other horror movies, we'll chat Halloween-y stuff, and we'll see. I'll try and come up with some ideas, some topics, some things to keep us focused, so we're not going all over in all sorts of directions next time here. So, with that, thank you very much, and good night.
And now, folks, it's time to say good night. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.